This one is close to my heart because I have a dog myself. It's going to be just talking about that dog-friendly culture and that reputation that Colorado and Denver has for being a very dog-friendly state. And while that is definitely true and it's a great place to have a pet, there are definitely, though, a few things I want to share with you again as a Colorado and Denver native. The first one is that a lot of the parks in the Denver area are quite crowded. You know, some of the most popular that you may have heard of, Washington Park, Sloan Lake, places like this, you know, they're going to have a significant amount of traffic of people with their dogs walking in any time of year, but especially in the kind of late spring through the early fall when it's beautiful weather here. When I first moved back to Denver in 2019, I was living up in the mountains for about 15 years up in the Aspen area, came back to Denver, and then right then is when I got my first dog. You know, my family always had pets, but it was my first dog for myself, Charlie. And I didn't really think about this until I started taking him on walks, but not only are a lot of these places quite crowded, if you have a dog that maybe is, you know, pretty curious and likes to bark or just kind of come up to other dogs, you're going to have your work cut out for you. You're going to be always dealing with that. Luckily, my dog Charlie doesn't do too much of that, but I was kind of expecting that when I'd have my dog, I'd be able to, you know, take him to certain places where I could just take him off leash and just kind of let him run in front of me and not have to be kind of tied down with the leash the whole time. You know, when I lived up in the mountains, a lot of my friends up there, a lot of trails there, you can do this. You know, you can just kind of be out way away from pretty much anybody else and not have to worry about, you know, coming up on people on the trail and scaring them with your dog off leash. You know, in Denver, it's just so almost impossible at this point to really do this other than going to dog parks. But these dog parks are also getting super busy. You know, in fact, Chatfield as well as Cherry Creek State Dog Park. Cherry Creek's actually one of my favorites. I've done a couple other videos all about this, but these can actually reach max capacity on busy weekends. So you can actually, you know, put your dog in the car, make the effort to get out to Cherry Creek to take your dog to this, you know, really nice off-leash dog park, and you can't even get in because it's at max capacity. So just, you know, there are a lot of people with dogs out here in Denver, and if your expectation is that, you know, that Denver is this amazing, you know, place in the mountains or near the mountains, and you know, everybody's kind of a little bit more free-spirited and you can have your dog off leash, you got another thing coming. You know, it's pretty rare to find this anywhere in Denver other than these dog parks. And just personally speaking here, I just don't really like taking my dog to those. I kind of worry about just not disease, but just, you know, just picking up stuff that's just in the dog park, and I prefer to just get out and find places on my own with him. So if you guys are kind of like me, just realize that you might have to get a little bit to the outskirts of town to find these types of places. And then one last thing I'll share about owning a dog in Denver. You know, again, as a first-time dog owner just a few years ago, I didn't really realize the additional expense that went on with owning a dog, you know, when it came to veterinarian bills and just the maintenance of having a dog. You know, these routine visits I'm taking Charlie on every 6 months are $150 to $200 per visit. You know, there's also even insurance where you can get now for your dogs, but that's averaging $50 to $75 a month in most cases. So these are just additional expenses that you might not be thinking of if you are, you know, really trying to be very cautious of your spending and what your budget might be coming out here. Well, you know what? I'm just gonna keep this trend going with the local tip on every one of these points. So for this one, I also wanna share with you one of my favorite spots to take Charlie, which is actually in the Golden area, and it's called New Terrain Brewery. So what's super cool in Denver is a lot of these bars and restaurants are now embracing this huge dog culture that we have, and they're actually having a lot of areas where you can not only just hang out kind of on the outskirts of a bar or restaurant with your pet, but at New Terrain, I mean, literally almost all the tables, you can just have your dog underneath the table with you with a dog bowl that they'll provide, and incredibly dog friendly, even to that next level to maybe what you're used to back home. So Denver definitely does have a lot of these really cool local spots to check out. Again, my favorite would be New Terrain, which is in the Golden area.